Welcome to Whatif tutorials. In this tutorial we'll be creating a project header in the project costing module. Firstly, we'll be looking at project numbering, secondly at the project defaults, and thirdly at the project header. Before creating a project header, most, if not all, of the project's master files should have been completed, although many of them can be completed on the trot as you create a project header. Okay, first of all, let's have a look at the project numbering. There are two series of numbers for projects. One is for the project number itself, and the other is for standard materials usage numbering. For project numbering, the number you put here will be the next number that the system will allocate to the next project, and thereafter it will increment that number by 1. When allocating project numbers, if you have to change your numbers, always go forward in the number, never go back, because this may result in duplicating project details. Okay, next thing I want to look at is defaults. And first of all, we have a default factory. Next we have a default project type. Now, project types themselves are a way of classifying your projects, but more importantly, each project type has a set of default markups. So there's one for each materials, labour, overhead, subcontract and other costs. These markups are used to mark up, by default, the costs of materials, labour, overhead and so on, in order to arrive at a targeted sales margin. So we need to select what will be our default project type and therefore the default markups, but these can be changed for each project. Next, we need to set the default work centre for labour and overhead purposes, and within that, if we have created standard operations, either labour, subcontract or other cost operations, we can elect to make one of those a default, or if we want to get rid of it, not. So that if we leave these blank, then when you create an activity in your project, while it will come up with the default work centre and all the defaults relating to it, it won't come up with any default operations. Okay, so let's go out of there, and next I want to create a project header. We click projects. This brings us into our project master file. For each project we have a number, a description, a create date, a status, and we have sales, cost and margin, and then target sales and margin. The cost is common to both of these, so that the cost is what is estimated in the projects through its activities, and the system then generates the targeted sales based on the project markups, and the sales that show here are the sales that you estimate as an override of the targeted sales. Okay, so to create a new project, you can create it from scratch by clicking New Project, or you can copy a current project. So if we were to want to copy this project here, we'll say Copy Project. Okay, so it's going to create a new project by copying this current project, and you've got two options here. One is to copy cost details, and one is to not to copy the cost details. And the cost details are the activity costs of materials, labour, overhead, subcontract and other costs by activity. So that's possible. You would end up with two. If you did copy the cost details, you'd end up with two projects identical. One you might want to then make some revisions. Okay, so we won't do that. Instead, I think we'll create a new project. Now, when you create a new project, you will bring in the default project type. Okay, and along with it, the default project markups. And the markups are expressed as a % on cost, and they can also be expressed as a % of sales. So you can change these here. These are the default ones for this particular project type. If you wanted to change materials to 15%, that's fine. You could do that. Okay, so the things we have to fill in is a short description. Now, in most cases, we will have a customer, and if we do, when we select a customer from the customer master file, it'll bring in all the customer defaults, including the salesperson, and it'll also calculate the startup and finish dates by default. These, of course, can be changed. And the site address comes from the customer master file, but that can be other addresses can be selected, or they can be added at that point, new address. So we get the site address in here. We bring in the customer's phones 1 and 2, email, put in a customer reference here. And then we move on to the follow-up section. We have a contact name, greeting, contact phone, last contact date, follow-up date, if we want to put one in. And the gross sales value here may or may not be known at this point, bearing in mind there's no costs. And since we have not got any costs down here, we don't have any target sales or margin either, so we'll leave that blank at the moment. Likewise, the discount has come along with the customer. So at that point we can say, okay, we've created that part of it. The next is a long description, so every project can have a long description. And likewise, it can have instructions. These are for internal use only. Okay, so we've now created our new project. So that's the project header. The next step is to go into the activities and create activities in order to bring in the costs of that project into here. But that'll be the subject of another tutorial.